Hello everyone, in today's episode I'm joined with Holly, and Holly has ulcerative colitis. In today's episode we're going to be hearing about Holly's journey, and it's going to be a really nice conversation. So Holly, thank you for coming on today.
Hi, my name's Holly and I am a digital journalist. I actually currently work for the Daily Express online. I started working there about 2 years ago after I finished my master's degree. And yeah, I have ulcerative colitis. And before I had all of this stuff happen, I had a stoma bag put in at Christmas. But before that, I was a really keen runner. So I used to love running. I did like a couple of half marathons. And I'm trying to get back there at the moment, but I'm just taking each day as it comes because obviously I've had quite a big surgery. And even though I don't have like ulcerative colitis like I used to now, I've had my surgery, I still kind of have a few little symptoms. It's not completely gone away. So I'm just kind of adjusting to life with a bag and a bit of ulcerative colitis just like lurking in the background. And yeah, I feel like I'm just telling you everything, but like, I'll stop there. I'll just stop there.
No worries. It's better to hear from you than me, I suppose. Like, when was you diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, Holly?
Yeah, okay. So basically a bit of backstory. My brother, who's younger than me, he got diagnosed with Crohn's disease around like 10 years ago now, I guess. So he's always like had that and had treatment for it. And, that's kind of like was my first introduction to inflammatory bowel disease. Before that, obviously, I didn't know anything about it. And through my brother, I kind of learned what it was all about. And I'd always had sort of like tummy issues of my own, but nothing like that. I had a bit of pain here and there. I'd have like constipation, and I'd always be taking things like laxatives and stuff. I could never really go to the toilet properly. I always had like just issues, but I kind of saw a couple of doctors about it, and they said that it was, maybe like IBS, or maybe I was like intolerant to gluten and things like that. So I kind of accepted it. And plus I had like a colonoscopy done and they didn't see anything. And this was done about 5 years ago, maybe. So yeah, I just kind of carried on. But like I said, I was studying. I did my undergrad for 4 years. I also did placements during my studies. I was doing placements at magazines and things like that. So it took me a little bit longer. And then after I finished up doing my undergrad, I went on to do my master's. And then when I finished my master's, I then got my first job working actually overnight for the Daily Express. So when you work overnight for a newspaper, you do the most insane hours like ever, honestly. So I would start work at 11 o'clock in the evening and I'd work through to 7 in the morning. That was my shift pattern every day, every week. So I was working these crazy hours, and basically, we weren't working from home at that time. I was working in an office in Canary Wharf. So I would travel in there and I'd sit typing all overnight. But I started to notice when I started working there, and this was in 2020, the beginning of 2020, I started to feel like, I don't know, things just felt like bad, like bad in the way they had it before. My stomach had always had a few problems, but I started to notice things were just getting kind of worse. Like everything I would eat while I was working, it would just like hit my stomach like a hurricane. I'd be like, hunched over my desk. I'd be feeling really, really bad. One night I was there and I literally had to say to my editor, I had to be like, I'm going to have to go home. I can't carry on working. I feel really, really bad. And he was a really nice guy. And he was just like, yeah, sure, go home. It's fine. Anyway, so that was in like January/February. And then, of course, as we all know, coronavirus came like bang, and it affected all of our lives. But we got told to start working from home at that point. So I was then working from home, but I was still doing the same shift pattern. I was still working from 11 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock in the morning. But, I was kind of like lucky in a way because I was at home and I was having these stomach pains. I was able to like lie in bed. So I'd literally be lying in bed, typing all these stories, but feeling just like really not good. And then what happened was this carried on for a couple of weeks when I was at home. And then I noticed when I went to the toilet that there was blood like all in the toilet. And I was like, that's not right. Like if you see something like that, you're a bit like, really, really taken aback. I've never seen anything like that before. And obviously, as I said, my brother's got Crohn's disease. So immediately alarm bells were ringing and I was like, oh God, like, is this Crohn's? Like, or is this something worse? Like, what is this? So like, I didn't even leave it, to be honest. Literally immediately the next day, I was on to my GP. I was like, I need to come and get an appointment. Obviously, coronavirus was going on. It was so difficult to get to see a GP face to face. They wanted to speak to me over the phone. And I was like, no, I really kind of need you to see me. Like, you know, I need to be looked at. I need to be referred. They weren't really keen on it at all, to be honest. And they said that I'd have to wait probably up to 6 months to have a colonoscopy because of the pandemic. And I was like, I just can't do that. I was getting worse by the day. So I got really lucky and I went to see a private gastroenterologist who like really listened to me and obviously knew that my brother had Crohn's and took that into account and was like, okay, we'll do a colonoscopy on you, like, you know, next week. So I was like, oh, thank God. And yeah, pretty much as soon as they did the colonoscopy on me, well, they didn't tell me I had colitis at that time. They told me that I had proctitis. So that's like a very like mild version of colitis, and it only affects the lower part of the rectum. So the lady who was doing it, my gastroenterologist, such a mouthful that is, she was like, oh, you're really lucky, like it's only affecting a small part of you right now, like you'll have like hardly any symptoms, you know, all you need to do really is take these suppositories and, you know, you can be on mesalazine and like, you know, you'll be like fine, like you'll have a bit of like pain here and there, but all good. So I was kind of like a bit relieved. I was like, okay, it's a bit of a bad outcome, but obviously not as bad as I thought it was going to be, because, you know, I have known people with ulcerative colitis, you know, where it affects the whole colon, and I know how bad it is. So I was kind of relieved that it was only just a small part at that point, but obviously, yeah, things changed as we went along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Especially like, is that still the case with your job now, working at 11 o'clock and going through the night?
No, so basically, because I got very unwell, I really had to speak to them after about 6 months of me doing that shift and be like, look, I really can't do that shift pattern anymore. I'm very much certain that although I have got the genetic component for Crohn's and colitis, clearly, because my brother has Crohn's and I have colitis, I do believe that the stress of that job, you know, like mixed with my genetics, is what triggered my colitis 100%. Because before that I was having a few problems, but it was nothing like that. And then when I started to work these really late hours, and it was, you know, it's a very like high intensity job, you know, I don't have like a break or anything like that. I literally work solidly for 8 hours. So I'm like pretty much certain that's what caused my colitis. And I literally had to be very honest with work and say, I've been diagnosed with this. I can't do this night shift anymore. Like, I need to work in the daytime. And there was actually a job going on the celebrity team at the Daily Express. And obviously before that, I was doing the overnight shift pattern, and I was actually doing like world news and things like that. And that's kind of more what I'm interested in. But obviously I do like celebrity stuff as well. You know, we all love a little bit of gossip. So I was like, okay, yeah, sure. I mean, it kind of suited me because I just needed to work in the daytime. But I still do different shifts now. I mean, I do either from 7 a.m. till 3 p.m, or I do from like 3 p.m. till 11 at night. But I don't do anything like overnight. So yeah, thank God for that.
Yeah.
Basically.
At least you get some sleep. Well,
you say that, but now I have my bag. I guess I'll probably talk about that more later. Like, sleep is, for anyone that has a bag out there, you know, like, the night times are very stressful for sure, 100%. But yeah, after that period, I was having like good sleep, and I wasn't sleeping in the daytime anymore. I was like sleeping at normal hours so I could actually be sociable. Because if you're working on a night shift, I had to sleep throughout the whole day. So, you know, we had that amazing summer, like in 2020, where the weather was like really sunny every day.
Yeah.
And all my friends were going out enjoying it. I was literally lying asleep in my bedroom like every single day, ready to go to work. So it's like being a vampire.
Yeah. Right. I suppose when you did work at nights, that was something that you probably had to do, I suppose, was try and have a sleep in the day.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't be able to do that later on.
But this is the thing as well, is that you know, there's so many jobs where people have to do that, and it's like nobody really wants to do it, but it's like somebody has to do it. You know, people don't think about the news that comes up on your phones or on your laptops overnight, but you know, somebody is there writing it. It's not just like writing itself. And people were always like to me, oh my god, like I could never do that and things like that. But obviously, because I just graduated from my master's in journalism, I was kind of like, you know, really desperate to get my foot in the door. And a lot of the time you have to take the kind of jobs that not other people want to get that experience to then move on to something that you more enjoy. You know, you're never going to step into your like dream job when you first leave uni. It's kind of like working your way up slowly to kind of get where you want to be.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
yeah, that's it. Like, because I suppose you get asked what job you want to do when you're like really young and you don't really know at that age, and like your dream job it could have been to be a singer.
Well, you say that, but actually when I was younger, that's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a singer or a dancer or an actress. I actually went to musical theatre school before I realised I'm really terrible at all of those things. And then I was like, I'm going to have to figure out another job path because I'm never going to make it as a singer, an actress or a dancer. I'm left-footed, I'm dyspraxic, I have no clue. There's literally zero coordination. So yeah, that's what I did grow up wanting to be, actually, funnily enough.
Yeah.
It's just so funny that you said that.
I did drama, and I had to do some dancing, and
No,
I did,
really?
yeah, and I had to get taught because I had to do it in a particular way. It was all old fashioned and stuff, so I wasn't good. I was just laughing about it. Like I'm good at acting and stuff, but the dancing part I can't, or I'm not a good singer. Well, I say I'm not a good singer. I'll probably sing it, like everyone does. They get like their Spotify, their music on their phone, and then you're going along with it. But yeah, I do like drama. Probably when I was younger, the job I wanted to do was probably be a football commentator or something like that, because I'm quite good with the knowledge of it and all. But who knows? But yeah, like but I think it's important like you have a job that you enjoy, though. Like you want to do it as well as earning money for it as well.
Oh, that's 100%. And do you find that like having autism, did that kind of, you said like you would struggle with dancing, does your autism kind of affect your coordination in any way?
I suppose it does. Like I don't like touch. That comes on my autism.
Okay, I don't either.
Yeah. I don't like touch. I kind of like when everyone's keeping a distance. That was nice because I didn't like going too close to people anyway. So that was a nice rule while it lasted. But yeah, I suppose I had to practice so much when I was doing that dancing. I had to spin round and stuff like that. And when it was finished, and I had to show people as well, like the audience was there watching, and about
really? Oh my god, no, I wouldn't cope. I would die if anybody saw me dancing. I'd be in tears. Actually, my parents did see me a few times, and they were just like, "Oh, you were really, really good, Holly." But they were completely lying through their teeth because, you know, they knew that I was just absolutely shocking. But it's good to give things a go, unless, you know, if you never give things a go, then you actually never know like what you're good at. We all kind of limit ourselves sometimes into this one box, but you don't have to be good at just one thing. You know, it's good to try other things. And kind of even through having like an illness, I'm sure like with yourself, you find yourself having to talk more and express yourself more because you need to be like heard and you need people to understand what you're going through. So now I find myself talking more like on video and things, and that was something I was really scared of doing before, and now I'm getting like more kind of confident at doing it because I feel like I have to, in a way, to, you know, get the message out there about these illnesses, you know, because if we don't speak about them, then people are going to be completely unaware of them, especially when they're invisible conditions, you know, like with yourself, like having autism and Crohn's, you know, people wouldn't know that if they just looked at you. It's only when you talk about your experience that people understand kind of what you're going through.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's hard to like to speak about it at first. It takes time. Like I was quite young when I was diagnosed with autism and with Crohn's. I was more 2017, but I didn't really understand them at first.
Mm.
Like Crohn's was kind of a shock, I suppose. 'Cause I didn't hear of it. I have no one in my family that has it either. Um, and I didn't know anyone that had it. So, and then I learned about it a little bit. Then I saw other people that had it, and then I thought it was better. Of course, it's not good to have it, but it's nice to have people that have it as well as like yourself.
Yeah, I think especially through social media these days, it's so helpful. Like I genuinely don't know what I would have done if there wasn't this community of support. You know, like it just makes you feel so much better when you know that you're not alone and there are other people out there going through exactly what you're going through. And also people are so like keen to give you advice, like not kind of tell you what you should be doing, but just suggest, you know, different ways of that you could be doing it, if that makes sense. And you know, it's actually been really, really helpful, especially during my surgery in December. I mean, God almighty, that was I didn't know like who to speak to about that at first. I was just like, oh my God, my world's over. But then I realized there was so many other people like me, and it just made things a hell of a lot easier, definitely. So yeah,
Yeah,
thanks social media.
yeah, it is very helpful because I didn't actually create any pages till probably 2020 when the pandemic
Yeah.
kind of started. Um, and I thought why not? I'm stuck in doors, and, like
Well, why
a
not?
lot of people. Yeah, and I suppose it's helped create a podcast as well. So something to do.
It's great
So
that you're kind of educating people as well, because you know you have that you suffer from, you know, two conditions, and they're very like, you know, a lot of people suffer from them. And yeah, it's really great to, you know, if, say for instance, if I had autism and I didn't know anything about Crohn's, you know, I might tune into your podcast and then I would start to learn about Crohn's, and vice versa. You know, you learn about things that not necessarily you would know just from listening to a simply like Crohn's podcast or simply like autism podcast. It's great that you're kind of like talking about the two different, you know, things together. That's really good. Love
yeah,
that.
yeah. I think it's good. Like at the start, I just talked about myself. I didn't really know much about podcasts. I kind of talked about like my journey and stuff. Um, and then I decided I'll get some people on, see how that goes, and it worked. It's done pretty good. Talk to different people about their stories and journeys, and not just people that have got them, people that work with it and stuff like that. So it's always nice, and it's always just nice to see another person like virtually as well, and just having a good conversation about something.
Yeah, it's just nice to kind of meet new people and just talk to them, you know, people that probably you wouldn't meet every day, you know, and just literally just having a chat. It's nice, isn't it? Because especially when you have something in common, you know, you kind of have, you know, that stuff to talk about. Whereas I have my friends, but most of them don't have ulcerative colitis. So it's hard to have that conversation. I feel like if I'm talking about it, it's more like I'm educating. I'm kind of like telling them things that they didn't know. Whereas if there's somebody who has a similar illness, it's kind of like you're more like swapping stories and like sharing anecdotes about your journey and things like that. So yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And like yeah, it's easier when I suppose like you talk about it more, and like you're telling maybe your friends who don't know much about it. Some might say they do. Um, like they kind of, I think that nowadays you get like that, it goes like a lot around a lot more. Like people hear about like
Mhm.
these conditions. I think it's because probably people are talking about it more, which is good. But it's still, I think it still does need to be talked about, as long as you can, and until hopefully there's a cure one day. But even if there was, I would still talk about it.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, like you said, I think people are more aware these days. I mean, before I had my stoma surgery in December, obviously I had ulcerative colitis, and I was following a lot of girls and guys on Instagram who, you know, had ulcerative colitis, but then had also had a stoma bag, and I didn't have one at that point. And I'd be looking at them, and I'd be like, in awe of them, being like, wow, that's amazing. How they're like posting that out there and how brave they are and things like that. But then at the same time, I was also thinking to myself, like, I can't exactly relate to them because obviously I haven't been in their shoes. I also thought at that point, like, I never would be. You always think that you look at other people and sometimes you just think to yourself like, oh, I'll never be in that position. Like, that won't be me. But the problem is that actually you don't know that. You don't know that you're not going to be in someone else's shoes. I mean, even some people who now probably look at me and see my bag and they probably look at me and think like, oh my God, that's amazing. She's so brave. But like, it'll never be me. Like, that won't happen to me. Like, I'll be completely fine. But actually, you don't know what's around the corner. I genuinely, in a million years, never thought I would end up with a stone bag, because as I said in the beginning, when I first was diagnosed, I got told I didn't even have ulcerative colitis. I got told I had proctitis, and I got told that it was highly unlikely it would ever even turn into ulcerative colitis. And I got told that like 2 years ago, just 2 years ago. And in that space of time, how things progressed that quickly has like blown my mind, really, because as I said, my brother's had Crohn's disease for 10 years and he's been on treatment and he's been completely fine and never had like hardly any flare-ups. He's not had surgery. And then for me to get diagnosed only 2 years ago and go from being told there's, I'm all right, to now having a bag, it's just like, yeah, it's completely crazy. And it just really can happen to anyone. And you don't even have to have, well, I'm learning as well that you don't even have to have Crohn's or colitis or bowel cancer to have a bag. I follow this amazing lady on Instagram called Carla, and I've been like reading up about her. And she actually had, she has endometriosis, and she has a stoma bag. And that's something that I've learned. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that people with endometriosis, could end up having a stoma bag. So there's actually a lot of different illnesses that can lead to bowel problems, really. And it's just, it is coming more and more, I think more and more, I don't know if it's becoming more and more common these days to have a stoma bag, but I think there's just more awareness these days. I feel like 20 years ago, people wouldn't be posting about their surgery. They wouldn't be sharing their journey. So you wouldn't know. And there'd be this stereotype that only old ladies have stoma bags. I think sometimes when people see young people like myself having one, they're a bit like, what? Like, she's too young. How can she have a stoma bag? Like, it doesn't make sense. And actually, I think it's great that people like myself are out there turning the stigma completely on its head, because, you can have a stoma bag. You can still have a life. You can still drink alcohol. You can still, wear nice clothes. You don't have to just like cover yourself up and close the doors and never come out. Like, you can live, well, not exactly like a normal life, but you're not like restricted from everything in life, if that makes sense.
No, we can still do stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same for like yourself, like having like autism. You find that people could put you into one category, which is just not true. And it is great that, there are people, including yourself, out there challenging the stereotype and showing that you can do just as much. Like, it doesn't restrict you from like, creating a podcast or becoming an actor. Like, I had a really good friend when I was at university that had Asperger's syndrome, and he's now gone on to be like a super successful actor. He's been on like Holby City and he's done all these amazing things, that I think that some people will thought that he'd never be able to achieve. And it's like, no, he's actually done better than a lot of people. So yeah, I think that's just so great.
Yeah, I think it's great that you have people like that. Like, I know a few people that have gone into like probably more well known than out there. Like, you've got a person from a show called Prison Break, who last year said that he's got Asperger's or like autism. And then you've got when in the IBD side of things, you've got the dancer Amy Dowden who's got Crohn's.
I love Amy, she's great. And actually, when because obviously I've been working for the Daily Express online, and I do a lot of interviews with different celebrities, and I'm a bit sneaky because I really do try to interview people who have got, celebrities who I know have got IBD, because I think it's great that I'm doing it for my work, but then I'm also doing it for like my followers on social media who have, IBD. So I've actually interviewed Amy before by email. And I've also, I don't know if you know Louise Thompson from Made in Chelsea. she has ulcerative colitis, and I interviewed her like on FaceTime, and she was so nice, but obviously she didn't know when I was interviewing her that I had ulcerative colitis. So I kind of like told her about it, and she was like, oh my God, that's crazy. Like, you know, but it just goes to show you, you know, like you just never know who you're walking past in the street, or like you're speaking to on the phone, who shares the similar condition to you. Even the other day, it was crazy. I rang 111 because I was having a problem with my stoma, and the lady on the phone was talking to me, and all of a sudden she was like, oh, I have a stoma. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, unless she told me that, I never would have known that she had a stoma, but she told me that. And I was like, wow, there's actually so many people out there who have the same as me, but I just wouldn't know unless they told me. That's the thing, you know, people don't have to tell you if they don't want to, but obviously a lot of people do want to tell you because they're proud, they're not ashamed.
That's it. I actually did a blog for Crohn's and Colitis UK last year, late last year it was, and how that came about is because you go on I think you can go on the Crohn's and Colitis website, and then you can tell your story, and I did. And then a member from Crohn's and Colitis UK got in touch, and they said they just gave me a call. Well, one afternoon we had a little conversation, and I told my journey with Crohn's and autism, because he wanted to hear about autism as well. And it was really nice, because I spoke about like how it was at school. I talked about different people who are inspirational. Like I mentioned Amy on there. I also mentioned an actor called Sasha, who actually is currently in Doctor Who, and he's got Crohn's. So that was pretty nice, and he's like one of the ambassadors for Crohn's and Colitis UK, and and it was just really nice to do, just to tell my story on there, to talking about like Crohn's, talking about autism, talking about like people not understanding as much, and yeah, it's nice that you have these high profile people who are probably a bit more famous than us.
Just a small bit, just a tiny bit.
Yeah.
But what was great I love about Amy actually specifically is that even more than some of the other celebrities who obviously have, you know, mentioned that they have Crohn's or colitis, you know, she really actively speaks about it, and she kind of takes her followers on the journey with her. I mean, when I was really ill in November, I remember I watched her program that was on BBC like 3 times, because I was at home and I was just going through kind of the same stuff she was going through in the documentary. And it just felt so nice to kind of watch that and feel like, oh, it's not, you know, it's not just me. Look at this girl here. She's going through hell, and, you know, she's so successful, and she comes back strong every time she's back on Strictly, she's back dancing. Because, you know, like anybody who gets really, really ill, I mean, in December, like when I went to hospital, I like nearly died. And there was a day that I thought when I was in there, like, I'm never going to come back for this. I genuinely thought like my life is over. I didn't know if I'd go back to work. I didn't know if I was going to, I didn't even know if I was going to make it out of the hospital. I was in there for 8 weeks. It's basically 2 months. And I like, it was the worst time of my life. Genuinely, it's like the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And I think seeing Amy kind of going through similar stuff and coming back strong and being able to carry on working just gives so much hope to other people who also are going through hell and have to go to hospital all the time. And it really does bring you down, and it makes you think to yourself, like, what's the point? You know, if you're always going back and forth into hospital, you just feel like, is this ever going to end? And that's the problem with having a chronic illness, is that it never ends. You know, like, it's just everything that you have done, every medication you take, every surgery you have, it's just helping, but it's not like ending the problem. It's just like kind of helping you, you know, like even having the stoma bag that I have now, my colitis hasn't gone because I have a stoma bag. It's still very much here, but this is just kind of helping me a bit for now. But, you know, I still have things that I have to do, and, you know, I just wonder, when will it ever end? And it probably won't, because, you know, that's the thing with the chronic illness. Like I said, it never really ends. Like, it's just, and it's kind of, it's really heartbreaking when you have to take that in, because, you know, part of you always thinks to yourself, there'll be a day when it's gone. There'll be a day when it's all over. And then having to face reality that it might not, it's just like, oh my God, it feels exhausting. And like, it can make you feel really, really down and take to a really dark place, I think. I mean, I'm sure you have been there as well. Like when you have flare-ups and that, you can just feel like you're having like that nobody understands, or that it's never going to end, and you just feel so defeated. It's like, it's horrible.
Yeah, it is. A flare is not nice. Like you feel like the world gonna end, or don't you? And
Yeah.
you don't feel very good about it. Like I say, I had one last year. It wasn't a painful one. It was more one where my Crohn's levels were out of range, and like treatments and stuff like that. But yeah, a flare is a flare, and a flare isn't friendly to us.
And that's the thing, is that in the beginning, when I first got diagnosed, I'd have flares, but there are definitely different kinds of flares. When I had my first few flares, it was just like a bit of bleeding, bit of pain, and nothing too bad, really. I could kind of manage through it. I mean, I would still be going out running and that, even when I was having a flare up. And obviously, because I'd never had anything worse than that, I thought that was pretty bad. But as time went on, and we got to, like, say last year, from like summer onwards, the flares became so much worse. And then I was starting to look back on the flares I was having before, and I would like be missing them. I'd be like, oh God, I thought they were really bad at the time, but actually I'd take that any day over this. This is absolutely horrendous, because it wasn't just bleeding. It was like, I can't even describe. I couldn't even move. In the early days, I'd be able to go running and stuff. Towards the end of last year, I have pictures of myself just literally in my flat, paralyzed, lying on the floor. I couldn't even move. I couldn't, let alone going for a run or doing anything like that. It was just like, it was so awful. And I genuinely felt like I was going to die. There's no way about it. That's how I felt. And obviously there was that day in the end of November where I had to admit that things were really bad. And I'd been trying to get help for like the last year through my doctors. I was trying to, get seen. And I was kind of being ignored because I had been diagnosed with proctitis. So because of that, I wasn't taken very seriously when I was messaging my doctors saying, oh, I think things are getting worse. Can I come in? Oh, I don't think my medication's working. Can I change it? I was literally being dismissed almost. And they were just like, oh, don't worry, you're fine. Just carry on taking it. I'm sure you'll be better soon. And I was like, well, no, I really need to come in and see someone. They were like, oh, well, we're not seeing people at the moment because of COVID. So I literally didn't get seen at all. I started to think maybe it's all in my own head. I started to think, well, the doctors think I'm fine, so I must be fine. Do you know what I mean? So I was almost gaslighting myself and what I knew to be true. But I was just kind of thinking, well, this is what the doctor said. They're medical professionals. Who am I to dismiss what they're saying? So I carried on until I literally had to get my mum to come and pick me up from where I was living in London. And she lives in Essex, and she took me in the car to Essex. And I got back to her house and she put me in the bath, and she could see that I was in a really bad way. Like, I hadn't been eating and I was pale as a ghost. And she was like, you look terrible. Like, we've got to do something. And even at that point, I was like, no, Mum, I can't miss work. I've got work. She was like, but you look really, really bad. Like, you need to be seen. But I was obviously, I was trying to keep up with everything, work and my friends and going out. And I just didn't want to miss out. And then, that later on that day, I was trying to go to sleep, but I was just bleeding so badly. I couldn't even get off the toilet to go to bed. It was so bad. And I was just losing so much blood. It was just horrible. And I had to admit that things had just gone beyond, coping at home. So I just said to Mum that I think I need to go to the hospital. And then I got to the hospital, and then, I thought I was going to be there for like a night or two, and it didn't work out like that at all. It was really bad.
Yeah.
But we kind of listen to ourselves when we have chronic illnesses, because we get so used to pain and so used to suffering every day that when things are getting worse, we almost don't acknowledge it. And like, when do you stop and go to a doctor? Like, how far do you let your body disintegrate until you get help? That's the hardest thing, I think, about having a chronic illness.
Yeah, of course. And I remember when I was diagnosed, and I didn't know what was happening at the time, because I lost quite a lot of weight when I was diagnosed. well, in before that year, the year of 2017, I lost a lot of weight. I was turning 16. Had a birthday party, go-kart, and I remember that year I was okay for that. But then it was one of my friends in the October, when I did get diagnosed. But on the October, I was in a lot of pain, and I still went to someone's birthday party, even though I was in pain.
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
standed there, and I still went to school actually, because I was diagnosed when I was year 11. Um, and I still went in because I had to catch up anyway. And that was at a time where there was a drama like exam, um, and they kind of need. I played a minor role character where I was needed. Um, well, I was needed to there to. It wasn't helpful me not being there for the others, but I wasn't gone long. I was gone long enough to get diagnosed. But at first, they were going to wait for like an appointment and a kind of philosophy, a few like a month later, and then I decided I can't wait any longer, because
mhm,
if I wait longer, something bad's gonna happen and it's gonna be worse than the way I'm feeling. And I did get that done. I did get pushed to get that appointment when I wanted it, and I got it, and I was diagnosed with Crohn's. I actually, a funny story is when I was having that colonoscopy, I was sedated a little bit, but I heard the consultant say I've got Crohn's, and I've never heard of it before. I go out and I say to my parents I've got Crohn's disease, and the consultant comes out a few minutes later and he says, "You got Crohn's," and I was like, "I told you, I don't know what it is, but I told you I got Crohn's." But yeah, and then from there, and then I go back. I put on steroids. I was, but it was, and then from there, you kind of notice that you kind of go with your gut rather than a person that is like probably working in like as a doctor, as a consultant. Like you
mm,
know what to do. Like for example, the first biologic I went on was infliximab, but I was advised to go on Humira, which I am on now. But I wanted to go on infliximab to go in hospital because it was one of the first, and then kind of pushed to go that first. I was only a year, the infliximab, the infusion, and that year had a bad reaction right at the end.
yeah,
Um, I was a bit unfortunate because I was hoping to get on the 10th infusion, but I didn't make it that far. um, but I went on Humira, which I'm on now. Been on it a few years, which I prefer, especially during a pandemic. Don't have to go into the hospital. I can just
yeah. It's a lot
just sit at
easier because
home.
you can just self-inject at home, can't you, with the
Yeah,
Humira?
yeah, that's it.
But
It's
yeah, it's so true what you're saying though. I think a lot of the time it's just the fear of saying no. I feel like in society we're kind of pushed to never say no. We're kind of told that, especially things like social media, that we should always be saying yes. We should always be, going out. We should always be, taking on new jobs. We should always, always be busy. But we're never told how to say no, how to put our health first. That's something that we're never really told, like how to do that. And I'm a bit like that. I'm a bit of a people pleaser. I always put other people before myself. I always want to make other people happy. And especially last year when I wasn't well, I was saying yes still to everything when I should have been saying no. I was still going out and drinking alcohol a lot. And, obviously I'd been doing that before and I was fine. But last year I was not fine. And I should have known that. And I should have just stopped. And I should have looked at myself first. But if it was somebody's birthday or if it was, you know anything like that, I didn't want to let that person down. And in fact, I knew things had got really bad because it was my best friend's birthday brunch and I really wanted to go. And on the day I had to tell her that I couldn't go, and for me that was so hard. But I knew things had got that bad that I couldn't have gone. Like it just would have been like a bloodbath, to be honest, and that wouldn't have been fun for her or for me. But yeah, I think as now I've been through this journey, I'm now very comfortable, well, not very comfortable, but I'm much more comfortable at saying no to things and saying, today I don't feel very well, today I need to stay home. And especially since having my stoma, because it's been such a complicated surgery, I've had a lot of ups and downs since coming out of the hospital as well. And I've really had to put myself first once, because I've promised myself that I'm never going to let my body get into that state again that I did last year, where I ignored everything and carried on and nearly died. It didn't do me any good. And the thing is that I was determined to carry on working because I love my job and I didn't want to let my employers down. But at the end of the day, if I'm not well and if something happens to me, then my employers aren't even going to have me. Do you know what I mean? I'm not even going to be there.
That's
So
it.
if I don't look after myself, then what does anything else matter?
Yeah, I think it's I totally agree, Holly. I think like going back to the blood, like I remember the first time I got it, and it's not nice the first time you get blood, and I actually a year after or so, maybe a year or two after I was diagnosed, I went to Scotland. I went to Edinburgh for a holiday because Crohn's was a little bit under control then. I
Yeah.
go to the toilet in Edinburgh, and I see blood, and then I wasn't happy.
No.
I wasn't happy because I thought everything was fine. I don't want to go in hospitals in Scotland, Edinburgh. I would like to go to my normal one, like at
Yeah.
home. So that was the only thing. Like every now and then I will get blood. It might not be serious, but yeah, it's just not nice seeing that in the pan, is it?
God, no, it's absolutely awful. And the thing is it has to be taken so seriously, because even now, for instance, if I see something like that, even though I have colitis and it could just be a part of a flare up, I still feel like I need to get it checked, because it still could be something worse, like cancer, because I take it very seriously. Because I had a late friend of mine who suffered with colitis for many years, and it was really unfortunate, but it developed into cancer. And I think that because obviously the two have very similar symptoms, it's very hard to know like if it's transitioned into that. So I just feel like you have to be super, super careful. If anyone is ever seeing blood, even if you have colitis or Crohn's, you have to take it so seriously, and you still have to go and speak to the doctor about it. You can't just leave it just because you think, oh, it's just another flare up, or oh, it's really important that everybody gets checked and looked up on. And I still have some people that I've met just when I've been out and about, and I've talked to them about myself and about my symptoms and stuff. And sometimes they'll turn around to me and be like, oh, I've had blood in the toilet. Yeah, I've had that. And then I'll be like, oh, well, did you go see a doctor about it? And they'll be like, oh, well, I don't really want to go down the doctors. Or, I think people get so embarrassed about having something like that they're more inclined to leave it than to get it sorted out, because, oh, I don't want to talk about my bum, or I don't want someone looking at my bum. And especially for women, it can be very like sensitive, like embarrassing almost, like, oh, I don't want to talk about poo. And that attitude, can end up in all sorts of trouble, to be honest. Like you have to take it seriously. Your bum is just another part of your body, and it's something that has to be looked at. I've had to get like so comfortable with having, people looking at my bum and everywhere else through having colitis. When I was in the hospital for 8 weeks of Christmas, I was literally having, a surgeon putting his hand up my ass. Like, there's no nice way of saying that, but he was. Yeah. And like, I couldn't be like all prudish, like, oh my God, don't put your hand up my ass. Like, because at the end of the day, he's doing his job and he's trying to make sure that I'm okay. And, you just have to accept it at the end of the day. If it's a medical professional, not if it's just some weirdo that wants to put his hand up your ass. Like, obviously that's weird. But if it's a medical professional, you have to let them do their job. And I feel like don't be ashamed to talk about your symptoms, because like I said, Crohn's and colitis are so common, especially in young people. That's the thing, it really does. So actually, even when I got diagnosed at 26, there was a part of me that thought, oh my God, I'm a bit old to be getting this now. I thought that it was like something like only like for like teenage people or early 20s, because my brother got diagnosed at 17. So I was like, hang on, I can't be getting that, I'm too old. But actually, there's no age limit on, being diagnosed. It's just predominantly like late teens to early 20s who, when you first get diagnosed. But yeah, even in your 50s, you can still get Crohn's and colitis. Like, it can happen at any age. And the same with bowel cancer, because people think, oh, that's an old person's, disease, but it's really not. Like I said, my friend was young, had colitis, turned into cancer, and sadly passed away at the age of 30. And like, there's no age limit on these things. And it's just really important that, people always go to the doctor and take it seriously. But having blood is, oh, it's just awful. And even now, I genuinely thought, like, after having this stoma surgery, that I wouldn't see blood again coming out my bum. But unfortunately for me, they didn't tell me that when you have stoma surgery, basically, they take out most of your colon, but not all of your colon. So they leave still a little inflamed part inside that gets taken out during your reversal, if you have one. But because there's still the inflammation inside, unfortunately, you do still get blood and mucus coming from your backside. And that's something I didn't know anything about. So when it started to happen to me after my surgery, I was like, oh my God, it's not worked. My colon's still there. Like, I genuinely was freaking out. I was like, it didn't work. And then they were like, no, that's just something that happens. But yeah, you don't get told about that really before your surgery, which you think they would, but they don't tell you a lot of things, because I think they just don't want to spook you out with all of it, especially if it's like an emergency situation like mine, because they just want you to, you know, have the surgery done. Really, they don't want to like overwhelm you with all the ins and outs of it all. They want you to have it because they know you haven't got any other choice.
Yeah. It's not like, it's not nice when doctors do put their hand up your bum, but it's always good. It's for a good reason. Like I've had it done. Like the first time that I had done to me wasn't friendly. It just wasn't, because I have a fistula in my bum.
They kill.
And luckily I only have one. Some people have loads, so I've never had any. I've never had. Yeah. But if you've got people out there have loads, they have like loads of them.
I know that.
And like for me, I don't have many, but it's still not nice. Some people have to have like some sort of surgery up there, like kind of pop them, I think. But for me, like the irritations of it is, especially if you do like sports and like you get sweaty, but like it gets sweaty down there and like irritates you and hurts. And like at first, I had to get that checked. Even before I had Crohn's, I felt something, and I went to the local doctors, and she wouldn't look up there because she thought I was uncomfortable. But I think for the fact was that she was uncomfortable, and then that could have dealt things to be more like quickly like dealt with, and that went longer just because the consultant ended up like finding it and telling me what it was, but the local doctor didn't, because she didn't feel comfortable with it, which was, I suppose, annoying. Well, she didn't say that. She just said I was uncomfortable. Of course, anyone's going to be uncomfortable. If it sorts someone out, it's better that way. But yeah, it's not nice. But it happens when you have a colonoscopy as well. You have a tube down there, which for me, I don't mind. I think that's better.
Not either. I don't mind the colonoscopy. It's just, do you know what I don't like? I don't like the day before the colonoscopy, doing the prep, where you have to drink that huge thing that's like laxatives or whatever, and it tastes, oh my God, the actual taste of it, I just can't. That's the only good thing about not having a colon anymore, is that I don't have to have a colonoscopy done. Now I just have a sigmoidoscopy done, and that's just so much easier. You don't have to drink anything. You can just like have it done quickly and then scoot off. You know, like it's a lot easier. But yeah, the colonoscopies are never fun. But to be honest, like having the actual camera put up there and stuff isn't that bad. I think people think it's a lot worse than what it is. It really wasn't that bad for me. But then it does depend like how much inflammation you have there. Definitely makes a difference, because I had my first sigmoidoscopy, I think it was done like the beginning of last year, and I felt like nothing. I felt completely fine because I only had a tiny bit of inflammation. But when I had it done in the hospital in December and I had really bad inflammation, I nearly passed out because I was in agony. And I was like, and I also didn't opt for like any anesthetic or anything like that, because I just thought I would be fine. But when they got up there, I was like screaming and saying many expletives that the doctors were like laughing at, but they're trying to keep serious. I was literally like literally going nuts, because the pain was just unbearable. And that's how I knew that things were bad, because there was nothing like it. But so it really does depend on how much. I highly recommend, if you have a lot of information, to take anything they offer you in terms of pain relief. Don't be like me and be like, yeah, I'll be all right, no problem, don't give me anything, just let's go in, because it was absolutely awful. So yeah, that's a tip from me.
Yeah, that's a good tip, because I've had a colonoscopy and a sigmoidoscopy. I had a colonoscopy when I was diagnosed, and I didn't really feel much anything. The tube down the throat was probably the worst one for me.
Oh, I couldn't do that. No.
And I was gagging, and then the person next to me, luckily I knew someone there who worked there. He said, "No, don't do that, don't," because I was told, do not gag before it goes in. Don't go, just like, put your mouth open for a few minutes, and they look down, and not a nice feeling. But when it's out, it's fine. But for the sigmoidoscopy I had last year, but actually going back to when I had a colonoscopy, I was pretty much empty anyway, because I wasn't eating anything.
Yeah.
I still had to have the prep just to make sure, and that makes you go to the toilet. The prep does, and I didn't go once, because I was empty anyway, and it helped to have an orange. But every 15 minutes, of course, they gave you another jug like of it, and it took me 15 minutes to drink one, and then I'm given the next one. Don't have any sort of break. But luckily, when I had the sigmoidoscopy, I didn't need any of that. But I had sedation with the colonoscopy, and I just had I didn't have sedation. That I had like the air, the air.
The gas and air thing.
Yeah, that's it. I had that instead, and it was a bit more painful when I had the sigmoidoscopy, even though it was just down the bum. And I suppose I did make noises a little bit when it was hurting and stuff, mostly when it goes in and in the middle and going out with the main bits there. But I had I've actually forgotten what it's called. I always forget, but I had this
Yeah, what's the name of that thing that goes down your throat? Is it an endoscopy? Is that what it's called? I've forgotten what
I think it is. I think it might be. I think like it might be actually. I'm not sure, but from having the sigmoidoscopy, I had something on my bum, which I've forgotten what the name is. Which after we talked, I probably will think of it. But I went to the toilet. I had lots of blood beforehand when I had the sigmoidoscopy, and I told them that, and they said it's nothing to worry about. So I was okay. But I thought I had a little bit of inflammation down there. But yeah, I had a sigmoidoscopy and a colonoscopy as a and the next couple of years probably have another one.
Like an expert, like you've done all of them. You've done the throat, you've done the colonoscopy, done the sigmoidoscopy. When you throat one, like what was that actually looking for? Because obviously I should explain for anybody that doesn't know. Obviously Crohn's affects it's from here all the way down through to the rectum, isn't it? And then with colitis, it only affects in the colon. So yeah, I only really had symptoms to do with the colon, but obviously with Crohn's, you have things like fistulas, and there's something that happens with the throat as well, a symptom, isn't it? What kind of happens with the throat in Crohn's?
I think you can get like also ulcers, like down there, like the type of Crohn's I've got is called Pachipans, where it's known as the worst form of Crohn's, I was told. And for me, I suppose I'm quite lucky. I've had surgery or anything yet. I always ask when I'm seeing my consultant, "Am I having surgery yet?" They said no, not yet. But
well, you're very, very lucky. That is for sure.
Yeah, I am. Like I've had surgery before, but not for my Crohn's. When I was a baby, I had I have a scar. I have a scar on my belly for some operation I had, because I remember I had something when I was younger.
Appendicitis?
No, it's pneumonia. I had pneumonia.
Okay.
And that's probably not the reason I had the surgery, but I can't remember why. I know I went to London, and I got a teddy bear for doing well.
Oh my God, that's cute. I got one of those as an adult in December when I was having surgery, and I was like, oh God, like it's just, I don't know, it's so weird. Like, I mean, genuinely, because I just never thought that because I've always been a really healthy person up until the last 2 years. Like I said, I've always been running. I've been pescatarian since I was a kid. Super health conscious. I mean, I smoked a little bit when I was like 16, but apart from that, I've always been very healthy. And to then get that diagnosis of like ulcerative colitis and then obviously end up having the surgery, I was like, I don't know, I did feel a little bit like angry. I don't know why. I did feel a bit angry because I felt like, why is this happening to me? I don't feel like I deserve to have this because I've been doing all these like healthy things, and yet I'm the one having all this surgery. And obviously there are people out there who are a lot more unhealthy in their lifestyle habits, and they're kind of always the people that it seems who manage to get out unscathed. They don't have surgery or they don't get ill. And it does sometimes, you know, when it's the healthy people, it's just like it confused the hell out of people. I mean, definitely my family, everyone was saying to me like, but you're the healthy person, you're the one that's always doing this, and yet you're the most ill out of the bunch. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and it can really go that way. There's such a perception that, you know, that you can get cancer or colitis or Crohn's or anything like that from having kind of like an unhealthy lifestyle. And you do get people who try to say that it's the things you're eating, or it's, you know, it's alcohol, or it's, you know, this, but really and honestly, I don't believe there's, especially for Crohn's colitis, there's not really any link to diet or things like that at all. It genuinely is a genetic disease, or, you know, it can be triggered by things like stress. I am a bit of a stress head, and I've always had really bad anxiety throughout my whole life. I've always been anxious. And there's such a link between your brain and your stomach. You know, it's one of those things when you get really worried and that, you do feel it sometimes in your stomach. And for me, because I've always been really anxious, I used to think that, you know, that was definitely giving me like the IBS I was feeling about 5 years ago. And like I said, because I then started the job and it was quite stressful, that's why that's what I think kind of triggered off, you know, the colitis to begin, to be honest. But then, you know, it could have happened at any time because, like I say, I do have that genetic component as well. So there was probably no escape for me for getting out of it. But yeah, it still does annoy me a bit because I think, oh, it just isn't fair, is it? Yours, you know, when you have a chronic illness, you always just think, why me? Like, why does it choose me? Like, I didn't ask for this. And you think like, especially, well, I mean, especially now I have the bag, I have those days where I feel so sorry for myself. You know, I'll just sit there and I'll just be like, oh, I hate my life. And, you know, like, oh, I just want to beat myself up about it emotionally. I put on some sad songs, you know, sit there weeping in the corner. And it's in a way, like, although it sounds like depressing, it's quite cathartic doing that. It's quite, you know, it's a good release. Sometimes you do just need a good old cry to feel better about things. In the hospital, I felt like I was trying to be strong for so long. I was in there for 8 weeks and so many bad things happened to me in that time, including being, after my surgery, you know, I was rushed to intensive care for 4 days. And, you know, I was sitting around all these people that were literally dying. And I just, when I got in there, I'd been like holding in the tears for like so long, just trying to be brave. And then when it got to that point, I was just like, I just need to cry. And I literally just cried. And all of a sudden, I don't know, I just felt a bit better. I just felt like, oh, that's good. I needed that. I just need that release. I think people see crying as a weakness. And it's not like that. Not when you have a chronic illness, because you know what, you're allowed to feel sorry for yourself. People will say, oh, don't feel sorry for yourself. Actually, yeah, why not? Feel sorry for yourself, because it's a shit thing to have. And if you don't have a chronic illness, then you don't really understand what it's like to be in that position. So yeah, do feel sorry for yourself, because it's awful. There's no masking it. It's really shit. So yeah, have a cry and then dust yourself off and try and pick yourself back up again. But I think, you know, in society, it's always a bit like, you have to be brave, you have to be strong. Inspirational quote. Like, no one says like, oh, do you know what? You can be sad. It's okay to cry. It's okay to mourn how things were. It's okay to look back at my body before I had a bag and miss that. That's like human, that's normal. And that's kind of the process that you need to be on this journey, you know, to get to where you're going, is to accept what's happened to you and to mourn the loss of your former life, you know, to get you to your next destination. And it is a really hard and long journey, because, you know, you have the stoma surgery, but they don't tell you that after you've had the stoma surgery, you then have to make the decision about if you're going to have the reversal or not, or are you going to have your rectum sewn up? You know, for me, I have to make a decision because, as I said, I still have colitis, I still have inflammation. So my journey isn't even over yet with this. I'm just in the middle of it right now. And that's really hard because I've been through so much already that all I want to do is rest. But I can't, because it's not over. And I have to make like really big decisions that I don't want to make, but I have to for my health. Because like I said earlier, if you leave inflammation for too long and it's not being treated, it can turn into something worse. So I need to make sure that I know what I'm going to do next, but it's really hard and it makes me want to cry.
Yeah. And that's it. Like chronic illness is hard. Hard to deal with, hard to cope with sometimes. And like you say, it's always nice to have a little cry. I'll say I'm not a crying person. I don't really cry in front of people. But if someone, like, especially when I was in a flare at the start, I did feel a bit rubbish.
Yeah.
Like that's what makes you feel like why, like as you say, like, well, why me? Why we got this? But I suppose we never know that.
I never know that.
Yeah.
Just went, yeah, I really do wish, and everyone always says this, that they wish there was a way to find out like why it happened to them, and also like, can we figure out something for the future to stop this happening? I really don't want my children to be having Crohn's or colitis or having to end up with an ostomy bag. I want them to have a better life than I've had. So can we figure out something, a vaccination? I know it's being worked on at the moment, actually, by Professor Jeremy Sanderson, who I've seen a couple of times, who works at the Shard. He's trying to develop a vaccine that's gonna, stop kids growing up to have these illnesses. And I think that'll be just like amazing. That's going to be, that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's great. Look, just last few things before we finish, Holly. I just wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on like the restrictions getting scrapped, like with the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I know it's got a massive effect on people who are vulnerable, huge impact. I mean, for a lot of people, it's great and they're really celebrating it because they're like, yay, I can get back to my social life, or I can get back to work, and, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, there's some positives to it, of course. But at the same time, like, completely scrapping everything will have an impact on people who are immunocompromised, as a lot of Crohn's and colitis people are during the pandemic. My brother is on infliximab treatment, and he was deemed to be a vulnerable person. So during the height of the pandemic, he was shielding, and we were having to do our bit to make sure that nothing came in the house or anything like that. So I think to kind of just like completely scrap everything at once is a bit like, we've been doing this for so long. Let's not be like too like lax about it all. I feel like we should still kind of be a bit safe still, like, just wearing masks in like really crowded places and things like that. But yeah, I think it would be nice in terms of like being able to travel and not to go through all of those expensive tests and things like that. Obviously there's a lot of extra costs now for things that I feel like are going to the wrong people. Like, why should we be paying these humongously big costs for these like pre-travel tests and things like that? I think that's a bit like crazy to be doing that. Like, it can really affect people's ability to travel and to do things because they can't afford to pay for those sort of tests. So it's like, in a way, there are good things, there are bad things. Like, I'm kind of in the middle about it all. I mean, I guess we're going to see how it's going to go, because we don't know if this pandemic is completely over. I mean, does anybody actually know? Like, has the pandemic like put its hand up and gone, just let you know, guys, I'm off now. It was really good seeing you all. Like, we don't know, do we? Like, if numbers are going to start going up again. And if that does happen, then, like, what are we going to do? Because when I was in hospital at Christmas, I saw firsthand how much of an effect it had, because I was in there and so many staff like weren't able to be in the hospital because loads of them were getting COVID. And that was only a couple of months ago. That wasn't that long ago. And now all of a sudden to just be like, okay, COVID's gone now, everyone back to normal. I just feel like, really? Like, how is that happening? I don't quite understand, but like, I'm not an expert or anything like that. I'm sure there are people out there who know way more than me. Like, I'm just a person, but yeah, I mean, I guess we're going to see how it goes.
Yeah. Because it is a bit, like, in my opinion, it's a bit crazy. Going from restrictions to none. And like, me being like classed as the one of people classed as like the extremely clinically vulnerable people who will take like medication that dampen the immune system, don't really have much of an immune system. Like, like some other people, which it's annoying because like some people will think the pandemic's gone, which
Mm,
it will still be here probably for ages, and it will die down in
yeah.
time. Where probably like the flu, we'll have a jab each year, like that. But it's annoying that like you go from the shielding, and then you go you don't have. I suppose it was better. You had more of a life when restrictions were there, and like because people don't have to be isolated now if they've got COVID. So anyone can be going out there who's got it, and some people might get it worse than
True.
others.
Yeah.
So it's, I suppose it's quite not thought about much, really. But like I suppose we'll see where it goes. We'll probably possibly another lockdown in the future. Possibly restrictions will be
Oh,
brought back.
I wouldn't
But
rule it out. I
yeah,
wouldn't rule it out. You know what
yeah,
it's like. You just
yeah,
never know, do you? I mean, we all thought this was only going to last like a year in 2020, but then there were still restrictions coming in last year as well. So it's just one of those things, isn't it? It's just so unpredictable.
definitely, definitely. Well, I suppose we'll have to
But you need
see
to
how
keep
it goes.
safe. Will you still be wearing a mask and things like, if you have to go out and stuff like that?
Yeah,
I think.
like if I like I don't go into much shops nowadays due to the pandemic and
Yeah.
people and stuff. But like if I come across someone like on a walk or something like that, or I will wear a mask. I've got the kind of the proper ones, but better than the blue ones that people wear because they don't.
Yeah.
The blue ones that people wear only protect um well, they don't really protect much, like with
Mm,
with the other ones, the ones that like not long ago I went to a blood test in hospital and I wore mine. The hospital is probably one of the best places to go. Um, like of course, probably people will have COVID in there possibly, but when I went in, everyone was wearing a mask, and
yeah.
I think they've like hospital places have put that in place that they have to. Um,
Well, it was like the other day, I had to go back into the hospital because I had like my stoma stopped working for like 12 hours. So I was like, okay, that's not right. So I went to A&E and everybody there was wearing masks. I was wearing a mask, everyone's wearing a mask. But then this lady came in and she wasn't wearing a mask. And obviously she got asked by one of the staff, like, oh, sorry, ma'am, can you put your mask on? And then she started shouting and screaming and going mental and was like, I'm not putting a mask on. Like, you can't take away my freedom and this, that, and the other. And I was just like, it's crazy. You're in a hospital. There are people that are ill here. Like, you can't just think about yourself. You have to think about others, you know?
there are some people that are against it, against the vaccines, against COVID. It's very crazy that people that think that way. Um, I knew some people. I kind of avoid myself away from them kind of people. Um, like a person recently told me the pandemic is over for them. It probably is for some people out there. It probably is for them
Yeah.
because they maybe not vulnerable. They can feel like they could probably fight COVID. Or some people there's not. That's not the case, and I feel like I suppose they've been forgotten about. That's kind of how I felt a little bit. Like yeah, forgotten about by like the top people in the world that kind of
Yeah.
you're shielding. And now you don't have to, and you can just basically do. So I suppose you do what you want now, as there's no restrictions anymore. But
I think
but
it's easy for healthy people to forget about like its impact, whereas for not like so healthy people, it's still a very real reality that it could happen. And I mean, we've seen what this virus can do, and it's devastating. It leaves people gasping for air, and they can be in hospital for months and months. And it's like when you have something like Crohn's or colitis, you already have so much on your plate already. It's like you don't want anything else. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm dealing with enough. I don't want to get COVID.
no, no,
No way. I don't go to the hospital at all. I have PTSD from that place. Even going there the other day, I was hyperventilating. Like when you've been in hospital for a long period of time, you'll do anything not to go back. Like anything. I
yeah,
literally hate the place. It's awful.
yeah. I suppose that was one of the first times I went this year, like the other day for a blood test, and lucky enough they all still know who I am. I go to the blood test ward. I more or less know all the staff that work there. So we have a nice little catch up, talk about the storm, about the trees falling down, what happened. Not
God, yeah,
not,
that was
not
terrible. That was scary.
yeah, and not too long ago. but yeah, it just, I suppose it's nice to go back when you haven't been for a while, but if you go often,
Hmm.
if you go quite frequently, it does get irritating and annoying. Because yeah,
If I need to just have like a blood test done or something like that. But obviously the other day when I went, because I was having a blockage, they were starting to talk about putting me up on a ward and that. And when that started coming up, I was like, no, I'm not going back up there. I've spent 8 weeks up there. There's no way. And I've only been out for like, well, I only got out the end of January. I've only been out really like a month and a bit. So I was just like, I was freaking out so much because, you know, like I said, I nearly died up there and I'm really in no rush to end up going back up there. So yeah, but it's one of those things that is not talked about enough. It like having medical PTSD, because it's a very real thing. I didn't know that it was a real thing until now. It's kind of happened to me, and you live with the scars of being in hospital for such a long time, and the surgeries and everything like that leaves you with like, yeah, it really has such an effect on you mentally. You know, even now, if I look at pictures of myself in the hospital, I start crying, and like I have these voice notes from where I've been talking to doctors while I was in there, and if I listen to them, like I have like an out-body experience. It feels like another person and another life. And it's just like, yeah, I'm taken back then to that moment. And I feel all the feelings that I felt at that moment in time. And it's, yeah, it's really painful. It's really hard to deal with. So like, it's just so much easier to just be out and to not think about it. But when you're forced to think about it again, yeah, it can really hit you hard. Definitely.
definitely. Last thing
Yeah.
before we finish, I just want to ask: is there any advice that you give to other people that have ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease and IBD?
I think don't be afraid of surgery. And I say, and I thought I'd be the last person to say that because I was always terrified of surgery. And I just also thought it would never happen to me because, like I said, didn't get ever formally diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, always got told I just have proctitis. I only got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis once I was in the hospital and I'd run out of options. Um, so I had no time to even consider having surgery or anything. But I know a lot of people out there who are very ill and they've been told that they do need to have surgery and they have some time to think about it and things like that. And they're very scared and worried about what that's going to mean for them. But really don't fear it because I think now, obviously, at the time I didn't have a choice but to have the surgery. But I think if I'd had time to think about it, I would have been the same. I would have been very hesitant and scared and been like, I don't want to have that. I'll do anything not to have that. But as I'm talking about my late friend who suffered with colitis for many years, he also didn't want to have surgery done. And he was told on multiple occasions that he would need to have a stoma bag. And every time he was told that, he would always say to me, well, I don't want to have surgery done. That's my life over. You know, I'm a model. That's my career. You know, I'm not having a bag done. People won't look at me the same. And I remember always saying back to him, like, you know, well, if the doctors told you that, it must be for a reason. So, you know, you need to consider it. But he never did. And unfortunately, as I mentioned, over time, his colitis, you know, progressed and it did unfortunately turn into cancer. And I feel like maybe, I mean, obviously I don't know because, you know, he's not with us anymore, but I feel like if he'd had the option at the time to go back to the doctor saying he needed a bag and make a different decision, I think he would have done that. And I think that having a bag is not the end of the world. It's the beginning of just a different life, really. It's just, you know, life does go on. Having a bag isn't the end at all. It's the beginning of a new life. I mean, for me, like, it's been really difficult. Don't get me wrong. I've had days where I've wanted to, you know, bang my head against the wall about it all, but I can eat pasta now or I can eat pizza and I don't have that pain anymore. I'm not sitting on the toilet like up to 12 times a day. I'm not bleeding like I was before. I'm able to enjoy food, which I couldn't before. And I'm able to drink alcohol and do things that I found really tough. So yeah, there are downsides to having a bag. It's not rainbows and smiles. And there are days that are really tough and hard to get through. But I would just say that don't be fearful of it, except that it's part of your recovery from having Crohn's or colitis, and accept that it's going to make your life better, even though it doesn't feel like that at the time. And even though for me, it's taken quite a long time to get used to it, and I'm still getting used to it. Just, yeah, if you're being offered it, the doctor's offering you it for a reason. It's because you need to have it done. It's like, it's not, doctors don't throw that about willy-nilly. Like, they don't just make people have bags for no reason. They believe it's in your best interest. And, you know, you have to follow their advice. You know, don't leave it too late. to, you know, potentially become even worse, because once you're in that state, it's really hard to get better. You know, having a bag offers you a chance to recover. So yeah, I mean, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me and the worst thing that's ever happened to me at the same time. So yeah, it's really tough. I understand that, but I would say just don't be afraid of it. Like, you will get through it in whatever way.
Yeah, get through it. Like, everyone has IBD, does get through tough things and tough battles.
You do.
Yeah. Everyone has their own struggles, and everyone has their own highlights of having a condition that that every day you think about if something's gonna happen tomorrow. But like, we just got to focus on the good days, and if there's a bad day, we'll have to, I suppose, find ways that we can like deal with it when they kind of happen.
And reaching out to other people is just the key to that. Like, if you're having a really bad time, like, don't be afraid to reach out on social media to other people who are in a similar position to you, because like I've found, most people are really like keen to give help and to, you know, and the things that they say to me, you know, if I'm having a bad day, they pick me back up again. They'll say to me like, come on, you can do this. I've done X, Y, and Z, and you can do it too. And then I'll be like, okay, fair enough. Like, look at that person. They've achieved this and they've got a bag. I can do it too.
Definitely. Well, it's some really good advice, Holly. And it's been a pleasure speaking to you. It's been a really good chat, talking about lots of really good things. And yeah,
chat forever.
Yeah,
I feel like we could go on for days.
Yeah, we could, couldn't we? But I suppose we have to stop at some point. Yeah.
Road end here.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Holly. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and yeah, I hope you have a nice rest of your day.
Brilliant, and you, thank you.